I believe that being a critic of media should come with some requirements of basic media literacy and comprehension. I also believe that being a critic of media should come with some basic requirements of taking accountability and accepting criticism of your own critiques. Also, I think these same media critics need to know the difference between media criticism and moral outrage. Fortunately, thanks to the power of the internet, we are exposed with loads and loads of critics who don't have all of those things. They think that being morally outraged towards certain tropes is exactly the same thing as thinking critically of those tropes that they got morally outraged at. It's not, and let me show you how.
Thinking critically about anime means you are not a real anime fan?
Let's examine what thinking critically here means. It shows a video from the anime T talking about certain romance anime tropes that need to go, and the video thumbnail shows harassment and age gaps as examples. A video that's from 5 months ago at the time of writing this video. For the record, please don't send hate to the OP of this video. I'm here to talk about the points being addressed, not the OP herself. The video has 3 main tropes that got discussed: harassment and stalking, age gap and student-teacher romance, and finally romance between siblings. All of these tropes are considered problematic by the OP, but here's the problem. The OP brought no legitimate points aside from, "It's weird, I don't get it, I don't like it." At one point, OP criticized the premise of "Please Don't Bully Me Nagatoro" while also admitting to everyone that she didn't even watch the show. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think judging a show based on its surface level premise is not what I would call thinking critically about anime, and especially not what I would call being a real fan. It's something that a tourist would do, which this person rightfully called out. And yes, the most that she can say in regards to a lot of the tropes is that she doesn't get them, or doesn't like them, or doesn't get why people like them. I don't see how this constitutes as critical thinking. I don't see why pointing out that a trope makes you uncomfortable is a constructive feedback towards the media that you critiqued. This is not critical thinking. This is not constructive criticism. This is moral outrage towards problematic tropes. And I don't understand why the moral outrage stops at these when you could also add other morally outrageous tropes being explored in fiction, like murder. But with that being said, I agree with the OP with one anime, and that is Maid-sama. Boy, I despise Maid-sama. The OP bring up Future Diary as an example of a harassment or toxic relationship, but at least with Future Diary, the anime clearly depicts the obsessive lover stalker yandere Yuno Gasai as a villain. The same cannot be said to the male love interest of Maid-sama. He's a villain that's being portrayed as a good guy. The anime might as well be called Stockholm Syndrome is really hot, actually. If you want a good manga that deals with Stockholm Syndrome in a much more tasteful manner, One Room of Happiness is my brother's pick. Go read that one instead. Regardless of our agreement that Maid-sama is garbage, you are still highlighting elements in fiction that make you personally uncomfortable, but not because of narrative reasons, but because of your personal moral reasons. You hate Maid-sama because Usui, the blonde male love interest, is controlling, possessive, super perfect, two-dimensional Gary Stu, and inhabits stalker and harasser behavior without suffering any consequences. I agree, but not because he is one, but because he's the main reason why the romance in this romance anime is garbage. Simply put, I hate Usui because he makes the romance story garbage, not because he is that character. Why would I hate a character solely because he's a bad guy? Because it's not okay to be like that in the real world? So is being a murderer, and a protagonists kill people all the time in fiction. Some have more morally questionable ethics than others, and some protagonists even got cheered for murdering people. Fictional characters like Usui is a problem, not because he's an incredibly possessive Gary Stu perfect reincarnation of God. He is, but because him being all of that makes the romance story uncompelling, uninteresting, one-sided, and even downright abusive, especially towards the main character Misaki, who actually has depth, character, complexity, and genuine flaws that make her more human than the god that she was paired with. It's totally possible to make a romance about stalkers and harassers and actually be good. Future Diary is a good example because they treat the stalker, Yuno Gasai, as a villain, because she is. Heck, it's It's also totally possible to make a show about Gary Stu to actually be good. Haven't you heard I'm Sakamoto is a great example, whose mangaka recently passed away. Rest in peace. Go watch that anime or read the manga. Even if the story is built upon a very problematic trope, it's how it's told that matters. It's how the characters interact with each other. It's how the plot treats the trope and make them consistent with one another. Same goes with age gap and incest stories. The OP brought up from Up on Poppy Hill as a bad example, even though it's actually a good example in how you deal with the incest subject matter. Eromanga Sensei is a bad example in how you deal with that trope, but at least Eromanga and its predecessor Oreimo are self-aware at how garbage they are, and that's what makes them at least fun to watch. Going back to the tweeter, you are absolutely correct in saying that thinking critically about anime means that you are a fan of them, but don't ever think for a second that what you and the video do is critical thinking. This is not critical thinking. This is moral outrage on tropes that make you personally uncomfortable solely because you are morally repulsed by them. My question is, if you are morally repulsed at a certain trope, why stop at harassers or stalkers? Why stop at age gaps and incest? I'm not even kidding when I say that one section of the video starts with, "Guys, your stalker and harassers are not your romantic interests, okay?" Why does that need to be said? Of course we already know that. The same can be said to murder, but I don't go out making videos and say, "Guys, murder is not cool in real life, okay?" It's fiction at the end of the day. No one should be morally outraged over fictional tropes when you have real life that's more messed up. And yet here we are dealing with people online getting morally outraged at fictional tropes while hiding that moral outrage under the guise of critical thinking. Let me repeat this as many times as possible. This is not critical thinking. These are not criticisms. These are all moral outrage. These are all completely subjective point of views that give no critical value. It's just whining that something exists, and that thing is bad. Speaking of real life, here's also the same take from the same tweeter that I find absolutely repulsive. This is in context of representation, and I've said many times in the past that begging for representation in media is nothing more than a thinly veiled excuse of wanting to be noticed by senpai. Whether it be senpai Hollywood or senpai anime industry, begging for representation to me is just people going, "Please include me. Please have someone like me in your show so that my existence can be validated." It is straight up narcissistic, and it is disgusting. I don't understand why people have the need to beg to these big media corporations that people who have the same characteristics as them need to be included. I have never had that desire ever in my life. I can still relate to people and characters without them to be in the same identity as me. Heck, Dion is my favorite character in Final Fantasy 16, and I'm not even white, blonde, or gay.
So let me get this straight. Folks who want to see people like them are the narcissist.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes.
No one, aside from narcissists, want to see people like them. I have been in communities where I am the minority, but I can still engage and relate to people who are not me. It's called basic human empathy, which is apparently less encouraged these days in favor of straight up replacing people who just so happen to fit in the majority demographic.
But you, the person insisting that you're a true anime fan and the rest are just tourists, are somehow not narcissistic?
Yes, actually, your points are surface level at best. No substance in your critiques. All of your points only consist of very basic observations like, "I don't like it. It makes me feel uncomfortable." These are not critiques. These are just you getting morally outraged at stuff, and you cannot distinguish between the two. If you cannot admit to the fact that you have nothing substantiative to say, aside from your own personal disgust, then I think people are right to say that you are a tourist because you are suffering from culture shock. It's clear to me that a lot of these people are not familiar with the tropes that are being very commonly discussed in Japanese media. And due to these Japanese media being exposed around the world, you have loads and loads of people coming in and try to tell people that what we like is not normal and that it should change according to Western standards. Absolutely none of this is critical thinking. None of these critiques are, if you even call them critiques, are worthy of any sort of weight. And yet these people seem to treat them as if they have any weight whatsoever. Not only that, but they don't want to have their ideas challenged. They instead resort to attacking the people who challenge their ideas.
Ever wonder why people who read visual novels for story only and skip error scenes tend to be more progressive?
That's not something that I wonder every day. The one thing that I do wonder is if they are only publicly saying that they're skipping the error scenes, but they are actually enjoying them in the background.
while the Kani Japan supremacy scenes of arrow-only readers tend to skew towards the most uneducated, shunned, and illiterate degenerates in society.
The quote tweet cited a tweet about some crisis in Africa that I'm not familiar with and I don't really care about, so I'll let you be the judge if the person is in the right or not. But I'm not really concerned what that person thinks. Let's just assume that I agree with you about that person. That doesn't make you any less of an idiot with the following take.
VNs will never be treated as a real medium if a significant chunk of the community act like this.
Never be treated as a real medium? To whom? Who is not treating visual novel as a real medium? Are you talking about the mainstream crowds that only enjoy easily digestible crap? If that's who you're talking about, screw them! These people have no taste, and their input means nothing. In fact, their input will probably mean the destruction of visual novel as a genre. We don't need all of these basic surface-level moral outrage takes to dictate what's right and what's wrong. What we need are genuine criticisms to improve the story and the mechanics moving forward, not some surface-level judgment coming from tourists. These are the same people that say that the Fate series is really hard to get into, when in reality, you only need to read the visual novel to understand the grand premise of the series, which is a dark fantasy battle royale between masters and servants from famous historical figures and mythologies in order to get the Holy Grail. What makes these people that don't treat visual novels seriously to be worthy to have their egos being freaking massaged when they can't even read subtitles properly?
We need to gatekeep visual novel stories and keep them away from people who only play visual novels for the H scenes. There is no other way for the medium to progress.
Well, sad to say this to you, but those same people that only played it for the H scenes are the ones that built the very same visual novel fandom that you know today. Especially when visual novels back in the day need to have H scenes to even compete with the competition. And speaking as someone who does enjoy visual novels for their plot and not just for their H scenes, I am insulted with the notion that the medium has to change to please some progressive, lowbrow, media illiterate moral guardians while completely ignoring the people that made the medium as big as they are to this day just because they think a certain trope is problematic. I do not give a damn about your disdain towards the people of the fandom that you don't like. They could be as moronic as you say, and that still doesn't dismiss the fact that your desire of trying to massage the ego of these media illiterate morons is exactly the reason why this medium is regressing even to this day. Your criticisms have nothing constructive aside from massaging your own personal feelings, and the sooner we don't appeal to your kind, the better. And that's all for the video today. Guys, sorry for the lack of videos this week. I got some real personal issues to deal with. And as always, huge thanks to all of you guys who supported this channel. If you want to see your names among these awesome people, then check out the links down below where you can donate just $1 and put your names among these legends and contribute greatly into this channel. Seriously, thank you so much, and I will see you all next time.